Welcome to Wealth Distilled, the show where we squeeze out the fluff and distill complex financial books into pure, 100% proof strategies.
Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into Morgan Housel's philosophy on the art of spending money. I mean, this is really the sequel to The Psychology of Money that teaches you how to actually enjoy the wealth you built.
It really is the ultimate mission, isn't it?
Sure.
And frankly, it's the ultimate psychological hurdle. If The Psychology of Money gave us the playbook for accumulation, the science of it, how to grow the pile. Exactly, mechanics. Then this book just dives headfirst into the messy, complicated, and often contradictory art of actually using it. We're moving completely out of spreadsheets here and into human stories.
We really are. Housel makes it so clear from the start that while, building wealth is quantifiable, money itself is fundamentally a psychological tool.
Right.
It's so much less about the numbers and way more about these deeply ingrained human emotions. The stories we tell ourselves about what success looks like, the pangs of envy we feel, all the social pressures that dictate how we act. And the central paradox he points out is it's astonishing. So many people successfully execute the plan, they get the money, but then that money completely fails to deliver the things they actually need.
Like connection, purpose.
Connection, purpose, good health, stable relationships, all the important stuff.
I think that opening anecdote he uses, the one about the LASIK patient, it's the perfect, almost chilling way to frame that paradox. It feels like a modern parable.
It's a perfect contained little tragedy of misplaced expectations. You have this patient, she gets LASIK surgery. Medically, it's a complete success. Her vision is flawless.
20/20.
Perfect. Yet she goes back to her surgeon, a guy named Dr. Dan Goodman, and she is just completely despondent. And the question is why?
Because she thought she was buying something else entirely.
Exactly. She had built up this expectation in her mind that losing her glasses would fundamentally change how the world saw her. She thought her husband would suddenly find her more attractive, that her colleagues would see her as more intelligent or capable.
She thought she was buying respect and love, but all she actually bought was better sight.
Precisely. And when she realized that those deep psychological needs, love, status, respect, they aren't triggered by something as superficial as her eyewear, she was just crushed. The investment failed.
Wow.
And her surgeon, he realizes he's not dealing with an ophthalmological issue anymore. He's dealing with a philosophical one. He literally has to tell her, you have a problem I can't help you with.
And that is the exact problem facing anyone who hits their financial goals and still feels empty. We chase the number, right? The bank balance, the new title.
Yeah.
We chase what's quantifiable because it's easy.
It's a clear target.
A clear target. But we don't understand that the real obstacles to happiness are almost always internal. They're psychological, and you just can't put them on a spreadsheet. Money is an amazing tool, but if you stop paying attention for 1 second, it can flip the script and start using you.
It starts dictating your social circles, your stress levels, and maybe most importantly, your identity.
And on that note, I have to admit, I am the quintessential target audience for this deep dive. I am that person. I've excelled at the accumulation part. Saving, for me, it became this unconscious survival skill that was just ingrained in me from a young age. So now I have this persistent, almost primal urge to just accumulate more, but I am completely paralyzed. I'm terrified of spending because I don't know what enough even looks like. I have no idea what purchase would actually move the needle on my happiness. Saving has become who I am, and spending feels like a betrayal of that identity.
Well, that anxiety is incredibly common, especially among high achievers. It's like a psychological muscle that becomes so strong it actually prevents movement in other directions.
That's a great way to put it.
And Housel is trying to help us build a new muscle, the ability to actually use the wealth we've created. The core dilemma is always the same. Is money a tool you use to build the life you want, or is it a master that uses you, dictating your dreams, your self-worth, and your every move?
Okay, so let's start with that master narrative. The trap that Housel meticulously lays out, which is this immense social pressure to spend for status. The idea that once you have money, you are expected to visually demonstrate it.
This is the absolute foundation of his argument. We confuse material things with this much deeper, far more difficult to achieve psychological need for respect. You think you want the faster car, the bigger house, but Housel's thesis is that what you actually crave is respect, admiration, and attention from other people.
And the spending is just the strategy you pick to get it.
Right. And it's almost always a deeply flawed strategy.
Which brings us to what you call the Ferrari fallacy. I love how Housel just cuts right through all the glamour of conspicuous consumption.
He's very blunt about it. He says, spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money.
Oh, right.
When people see your expensive luxury item, let's say it's that Ferrari, their immediate primal thought is almost never, wow, the person driving that car must be so cool and sophisticated.
No, their thought is, I want that car.
Exactly. The object of their admiration is the car, not you. You're just sort of the fleshy accessory holding the steering wheel. You're using your money to inspire envy and desire in others, not respect for yourself.
It's like attention is junk food. It's immediate, it's satisfying for a second, but it has zero nutritional value for your long-term emotional health. In fact, it actively damages your financial security.
And it's not a new thing. Housel connects this all the way back to Adam Smith in, 1759, who noticed that we value the attention money brings us more than the actual comfort it can buy. This is a deep human wiring issue.
It's ancient. And that chase for superficial attention, it leads to financial ruin. The attention you get from buying stuff is not durable.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not effective at getting you what you really want, which is genuine respect from the people who actually matter.
Your spouse, your kids, your close friends, they judge you on your humor, your kindness, your reliability, your wisdom. They could not care less about your home's square footage.
I wonder if that's why we, the high achiever audience, fall into this trap so often. We're so used to measurable feedback, a bonus, a promotion, a bigger number in the bank, that we try to apply that same metric to respect. We think, well, if I buy the most expensive thing, then I must be the most respected.
It's the easiest lever to pull, but it's the most hollow. Housel suggests we use something he calls the reverse obituary test.
Okay.
If you were writing your own ideal obituary, what would actually matter? What would you put in it? No one is going to list their car's horsepower or the size of their wine cellar or the precise carats in their jewelry.
No, you prioritize the eulogy virtues.
Exactly. Being loved, being a kind parent, having integrity, contributing something to the world. The stuff, the material possessions, are immediately revealed as completely irrelevant to your life's real scorecard.
And the more trouble we have getting respect through those things, through wisdom or humor or talent, the more we just default to stuff. It becomes the only visible lever we have left to pull, to claim some status.
Which is why the counterexamples are so powerful. You think of Jeff Bezos driving a Honda Accord for years long after he was a billionaire, or Chad Johnson, the NFL star who was famous for being frugal. He said he didn't need to show off with stuff because his name, his talent, was already bigger than any purchase he could make.
Right. If your contribution is already gigantic, the possessions are just. They're extra. They're irrelevant. Steve Jobs was famous for having almost no furniture. His status came from innovation, from cultural impact, not from consumption. The goal is to move from seeking admiration for what you own to seeking respect for who you are.
And that internal shift is the absolute key to finding peace with your spending. Housel even admits his own desire for a flashy car was at its peak when he was young, socially awkward and professionally unproven.
Serious thing.
As he got better at being a writer, a husband, a father, as he built up those internal sources of respect, the external desire for the fast car just vanished. The object was never the car. It was the respect he felt he lacked.
And this brings us right back to that incredible anecdote from the start of the book, the one that perfectly shows this mindless chase for status. The valet story.
I think this one story summarizes the entire problem. Housel is working as a valet. He's 19. He's at a fancy hotel, and he's watching this elite furniture show let out. And this man comes out bragging at the top of his lungs about a purchase he just made.
He just spent $21,000 on a single armchair. To a college kid, it's an astronomical amount of money for a chair.
Right. And the client, he sees Housel's astonishment, and he feels this need to justify it. And his justification is the ultimate tell. He says, boys, I know, it's crazy, but when you have money, this is what you're supposed to do.
Supposed to do, not I love the craftsmanship or this will bring me so much daily comfort. No, it was just about conforming to the social script of what he thought rich people do.
The guy was great at making money, but he was absolutely terrible at converting that money into a meaningfully better, happier life. He was letting the money dictate his choices, forcing him into this status performance.
And the performance takes so much time and energy and maintenance, which is why we have to get past it and move toward the only real valuable thing money can buy, which is independence.
Absolutely.
But before we do, I have to say, Housel's writing style, it's just so punchy and clear. I love his writing style. It sticks with you.
Exactly. It's not a dry financial textbook, is it? It's a collection of wisdom. It's broken down into these short, like 3-page meditations. Honestly, audio's great, but Housel's books are really meant to be kept on your nightstand. You read one short chapter before bed, and it just it recalibrates your brain. It forces you to rethink your priorities.
A cognitive recalibration tool. I like that.
It is. It's the best $20 investment for your peace of mind I can think of. I gift the physical copy to everyone I know. It's the perfect antidote to that spreadsheet anxiety we all feel.
A much-needed spiritual anti-spreadsheet.
Well,
Okay, so if we can successfully step off that status treadmill, we can finally focus on the ultimate product money can actually buy, which is independence. And that means we have to make a fundamental distinction between the two ways to be rich.
yes. The difference between being rich and being wealthy. This is, I would argue, Housel's most important philosophical contribution to the entire conversation around finance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think most people use those terms completely interchangeably.
So rich in Housel's lexicon is having the money in the bank to buy stuff. It's external, it's visible, it's flashy, it's the Lamborghini, the huge house, the diamond watch. Wealthy, on the other hand, is intangible. It's internal. It is having control over your time, your personality, your freedom. It means you never let money become the master that dictates your life, or compromises your morals, or wrecks your mental health.
The classic example being the person who is rich enough to buy the $100 million yacht,
Right.
but isn't wealthy enough to take 2 weeks off work to actually use it?
Yes, because they're drowning in debt and lifestyle commitments to maintain that image. Or, as Housel illustrates with crushing historical force, the Vanderbilt family. They were quite possibly the richest family in American history, and yet they demonstrated this unique form of poverty,
Right.
wealth, without any independence.
Tell us about the scale of that loss.
Yeah.
Because their fortune was it's unimaginable, even by today's standards.
Cornelius Vanderbilt left his heirs a fortune that would be equivalent to something like $300 billion today. The scale was so vast that managing and spending it became their entire life's purpose. There was this editorial in the New York Daily Tribune warning that trying to found a family on money alone was folly.
And they were right.
They were tragically correct. They predicted the money would destroy the family.
And within 60 years, what happened?
The vast majority of it was gone. The money wasn't used for investment or philanthropy or anything productive. The guiding purpose of the second and third generations became this reckless competition to see who could spend it all the fastest.
Consumption as a competitive sport.
Literally. They built these enormous mansions on Fifth Avenue, throwing legendary, absurdly expensive parties, like Alva Vanderbilt's costume ball, which cost millions in today's money. They competed on who could own the largest yacht. Their entire lives became enslaved by the expectation that they had to perform wealth.
So the inheritance wasn't a gift, it was the lifestyle debt.
Yeah.
An insurmountable one.
It was. And that lifestyle debt is why William Vanderbilt himself said that inherited wealth is as certain a death to ambition as cocaine is to morality. The money tore them apart because it was their only metric for success and identity. They had the richest bank accounts imaginable, but zero control over their own lives.
It's incredible. And a modern descendant, Anderson Cooper, he grew up knowing this history.
Yes, and he said he realized that inheritance was an initiative sucker. He knew he had to find his own way, which is why he's such a powerful example of achieving true wealth, purpose, and control, completely decoupled from that family's material legacy.
So you contrast that tragedy with someone like Chuck Feeney, who is Housel's model of true wealth, the guy who co-founded Duty Free and then gave away 99.99% of his $8 billion fortune.
While living quietly in a modest rented apartment, Feeney tried the high life for a bit, the luxury apartments, the yachts, and he discarded it. He realized that for him, all that money was only valuable as a tool to help other people, not as some monument to himself.
He found happiness in giving it away.
He found deep, lasting happiness using it to solve huge problems rather than as a vehicle for his own status. His true wealth wasn't in his net worth, which was basically zero by the end. It was in the fact that he retained complete control over his money and his identity. He never let his fortune force him into a status-chasing life.
And that brings us to the highest ROI purchase you can possibly make. Independence.
Trading money for time. This is where Housel's philosophy feels the most actionable, especially for that anxious saver you described. The money you haven't spent isn't just sitting there. It's actively buying you something intangible and invaluable. Optionality, freedom. The ability to spend your time exactly how you want. Every dollar of savings is a claim check on future time.
And that control over your time has the highest psychological return on investment of anything you can buy. It's what lets you handle life's curveballs without panic.
Look at the contrast between two athletes he uses. Antoine Walker, who made $108 million in the NBA.
Wow.
But he used that money almost entirely for status and social debt. He bought multiple expensive cars. He was supporting like 30 friends and family members in this high-spending lifestyle. And he filed for bankruptcy just 5 years after he retired.
He became a prisoner of his own spending. He had zero freedom left when a judge started dictating his finances.
Now, compare him to John Urschel. An NFL player, but a lower draft pick, earning near the league minimum. He lived incredibly frugally, saved almost all of his paychecks, and famously retired after just 3 seasons to go get his PhD in mathematics at MIT.
So he earned way less, but achieved total control.
Total control. Urschel's life is admired because he maintained his independence. He traded a possible larger future paycheck for the immediate certainty of time and control. And Housel forces you to ask, whose life do you genuinely admire more? It's almost always the person who kept control.
That phrase, wealth without independence, is a unique form of poverty. That's really profound.
It is. He even talks about a CEO worth hundreds of millions who had borrowed so aggressively against his assets for lifestyle spending that his bankers were literally liquidating his holdings. He had less financial freedom than someone earning a modest salary with zero debt.
Okay, but as an anxious saver, I struggle with this because independence sounds so binary. It sounds like an all-or-nothing thing. I'm either financially free or I'm not.
And Housel addresses that directly. He says, independence exists on a spectrum, not as an on-off switch. He talks about different levels, from level 0, which is total dependence, up to level 15. The key is just recognizing that every dollar of savings you accumulate or every dollar of debt you pay off moves you up that spectrum. You are buying a little piece of independence today.
So level 15 is the ultimate goal. What does that actually look like on a Monday morning?
It's waking up knowing you can spend your time doing what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. That's it. No boss controls your day. No social debt dictates your purchases. No actual debt limits your options. You have pure optionality.
Right.
But the beauty is, even just moving from, say, level 2 to level 5, maybe that's having 6 months of salary saved up, that removes immediate panic and stress. That is actively purchasing freedom right now.
That completely redefines saving. It's not about future sacrifice. It's about purchasing freedom in the present. And that freedom is what lets you escape the most insidious trap of all, the hedonic treadmill.
Which is the perfect place to go next. Escaping that treadmill by managing our expectations.
This is where Housel gets really philosophical, right?
Right.
He's connecting financial outcomes to, like, ancient Stoic ideas.
He is. He argues that the entire psychological basis for happiness is just the gap between your expectations and your circumstances.
Okay.
If your circumstances improve, you get a raise, you buy a bigger house, but your expectations rise even faster to meet them, you will feel perpetually poor. The person who has everything but wants even more is often less happy than the person who has very little but wants nothing.
And that is the critical problem for high achievers. We are wired to constantly push up the circumstances side of the equation, but we totally forget to manage the expectations side. We expect to feel happier, but our brains just, they adapt instantly.
That adaptation is the hedonic treadmill. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Our brains are wired for that immediate dopamine hit when we get the thing we want, but the satisfaction is so fleeting, we just normalize the new status quo. The new car smell fades, the big kitchen becomes routine, and we immediately start desiring the next slightly better thing.
So the goal isn't really to get the $100,000 car, because the second you drive it off the lot, your brain is already dreaming about the $200,000 one. That dopamine train, as he calls it, has no final destination.
None. Centimillionaires look at billionaires who look at decabillionaires who ultimately just want to, I don't know, live forever or own Mars. Since the game of acquisition can never truly be won by acquiring more, the only way to win is to stop playing, to actively practice contentment.
So the best measure of wealth, according to Housel, isn't what you have. It's what you have minus what you want.
Exactly. Desiring less has the same positive impact on your well-being as earning more money, but it's entirely within your control. And that's the power of Stoicism applied to your finances. Money can buy you luxury, but it cannot buy you contentment. That's a skill you have to develop internally.
Which leads directly into the challenge for people like me, the anxious savers who've built an identity around being frugal. How do we shift from saving as a survival skill to the art of spending, without feeling like we're betraying ourselves.
That is the core concept of frugality inertia. Saving is a great habit until it stops serving you. It becomes an identity trap where you see clients, often in retirement, who really struggle to spend even appropriate, sustainable amounts of money. They are financially rich, but mentally they're living in poverty.
I feel that inertia so deeply. The idea of spending, say, $5,000 on a vacation, it physically feels like I'm tearing up a $5,000 claim check on my future independence. How do you break that mental block?
The solution House offers to fight both the treadmill and that inertia is actually pretty simple. It's to create contrast. If you manage to live a simple, modest life that satisfies your core needs, then your occasional experience with true luxury generates exponentially more joy than if you lived in luxury all the time.
Because if you have everything all the time, you appreciate none of it.
You appreciate none of it. That contrast is what resets our appreciation. The ultimate illustration of this is the story of Ernest Shackleton's crew. They survived the loss of their ship, the Endurance, and spent 19 months freezing, wet, and starving on the Antarctic ice. They were living on seal meat and seaweed, completely deprived of any comfort.
It's one of the greatest survival stories ever.
It is, but the most emotional part isn't just the survival, it's the psychological shock of regaining civilization. When they finally reached a whaling station and got help, they enjoyed the most simple, mundane things. A long, hot bath, a shave, clean clothes, and a simple hot meal.
I can't even imagine the intensity of that experience. The food could have been basic, but to them, it must have been the most profoundly fulfilling meal of all time.
It was overwhelming joy, precisely because the gap between their low expectations and their new circumstances was immense. That intensity of appreciation is the dividend you lose when you live in perpetual luxury, where every day is a 10 out of 10 experience. A simple life lets that occasional luxury, a great trip, a special dinner, feel like Christmas morning.
He also tells the story of a man who regained his sight at 46 after being blind his whole life. And he was just awestruck by a simple office carpet, by a mundane exit sign. Because of the contrast, and the mundane became magnificent. That's powerful.
It's the power of intentional living. If you are already satisfied with who you are, money is a fantastic tool to make things even better. If you're dissatisfied, money is just a magnifying glass for that dissatisfaction. The first is wealth, the second is a trap.
Okay, so if we accept that we need to spend wisely, and we need to fight the treadmill by creating contrast, what are the practical frameworks Housel gives us for making smarter choices today? We need a filter for our purchases.
The first filter is the distinction between utility versus status. We have to apply this to every major purchase.
Okay, define utility in this context.
Utility is the value something has in directly helping you live the life you want without needing anyone else's approval. Take the car example again. A high-end Toyota or a loaded Ford with plush seats, a great sound system, advanced safety features that offers high utility.
It makes your life better.
It makes your commute better, safer, more enjoyable. You buy it for yourself.
And status is the opposite.
Status is the entry-level BMW. It might be less comfortable, less reliable, lack the features. But it has the premium badge on the hood. You buy it primarily for the attention of other people. You buy utility for yourself. You buy status for others. And chasing status forces you to spend your life trying to conform to the expectations of people you probably don't even know.
And that performance for strangers, it comes with a steep hidden price, which he calls social debt.
Social debt is such a fascinating concept. It's the hidden liability that comes attached to visible assets. It's when your spending starts to influence what people think of you in unwanted ways. It creates envy, entitlement, and this expectation that you have to constantly level up.
This feels like a crucial concept for high achievers to get our heads around, because we're often totally blind to these invisible costs.
We are. We all know Thoreau's famous line, "The cost of a thing is the amount of life which is required to be exchanged for it." Social debt adds to that cost exponentially. That new $50,000 car costs $50,000, yes. But the real cost includes the $60,000 car you'll feel socially pressured to buy in 2 years to keep that status spotlight on you. It's a never-ending self-imposed tax on your freedom.
And it goes way beyond cars. It's the pressure to live in a certain neighborhood with high HOA fees, or the expectation to host bigger parties, or to constantly upgrade your kids' clothes so they fit in at a fancy school. That's all social debt.
Exactly. It forces you into a specific high-cost identity. Housel even uses the extreme example of Frank Lucas, the 1970s heroin dealer. He was making $1 million a day, but was successfully keeping a low profile to stay off the cops' radar.
Until the famous fight of the century, where he wore that outrageous chinchilla coat.
$100,000 chinchilla coat and matching hat. Sitting ringside right in front of the vice president, he admitted, "For the first time ever, I actually felt like showing off." And it worked. He got attention. But it also immediately made him a marked man for the NYPD, which led directly to his arrest and a massive prison sentence. His social debt was literal ruin.
And for regular people, he points to lottery winners who lose everything.
Their problem usually isn't bad investment advice, it's social debt. They're immediately overwhelmed by requests from friends, family, strangers. Everyone feels entitled to their winnings. They lose their privacy, their autonomy, they're socially exploited. The $4 million prize is easy to measure, but how do you quantify losing the privilege of anonymity? That's social debt.
This whole analysis of cost brings us to maybe the most difficult balance we have to strike. That eternal conflict between compounding for the distant future and actually enjoying the present.
It's the ultimate tension, isn't it? The magic of compound growth versus the certainty that you're one day closer to death. Housel admits that advice like live for today or save everything is always too simple and often dangerous. The only genuinely good advice, he says, is to use a specific framework. Minimize future regret.
That's the real definition of risk. It's not how much money you might lose on paper. It's the psychological weight of the regret you might be carrying decades from now.
And that framework has to be dynamic. It has to change as your life stage changes. He mentions the musician David Cassidy's final words were, "So much wasted time." That's the regret of missed opportunities. But if you're a young parent with kids who depend on you, your risk calculation is totally different.
Right. As a young parent, my greatest potential regret would be not providing a solid financial safety net. But 30 years from now, my greatest regret will probably be the trips I didn't take and the experiences I missed because I was too focused on the accumulation phase.
Your financial philosophy has to evolve. You aren't static. Housel uses this great analogy from nature. The guppy fish. It lives in streams with tons of predators, so it evolves an ultimate YOLO philosophy. It reproduces super fast, throws its body together. It's the ultimate short-term thinker because it has no foreseeable future.
A low-regret strategy for a high-risk environment.
Compare that with the Greenland shark. It has almost no natural predators. It takes 150 years to reach sexual maturity and can live for 500 years. It is the ultimate long-term saver, devoting huge resources to building a perfect, long-lived body.
So the shark rarely regrets being prepared.
And we humans, living somewhere between the guppy and the shark, often pick a financial philosophy that's at one extreme or the other, like extreme fire or reckless spending, and that dramatically increases our risk of future regret.
So the proactive solution Housel suggests is to focus on investments that minimize regret. And that brings us to his idea of compounding memories.
That's the closest we can get to living for today while also compounding for tomorrow.
How does that work?
Memories compound in psychological value, just like financial assets compound in monetary value. The shared experiences you create today, the connections you deepen, the skills you learn, those will be your most cherished possessions in 50 years. They gain emotional depth every time you reflect on them.
And he illustrates this with that hypothetical choice. A job that pays $60,000 a year for 45 hours a week versus one that pays $50,000 for only 35 hours a week.
The $10,000 difference invested over 30 years could easily become $1 million. That's a huge financial trade-off. But the lower-paying job gives you back 10 extra hours every week. That's 500 hours a year or 15,000 hours of potential memories over your career.
As someone with frugality inertia, my gut reaction is to take the $60,000 job for the compounding. But he's forcing us to weigh that potential $1 million against 15,000 hours of freedom.
And that time spent with your kids, pursuing a hobby, just being present, creates memories that also compound. That family trip you take today is valuable now, but it's exponentially more valuable 20 years from now when you look back on it with your grown children. That's the best money you will ever spend.
So we need to focus on quiet compounding, prioritize internal benchmarks for happiness, and just accept the messy contradictions of life. We're seeking control over our time, not our status.
And that leads House to his final philosophical point, which is the necessary recognition that a huge amount of our success is just due to sheer luck. The environment we were born into, the era we live in.
Yes.
It's not all pure genius and effort.
The luckier you are, the nicer you should be. The antidote to ego and the status trap.
If you've been fortunate enough to live in an era of peace and high economic growth, you are a beneficiary of luck. And recognizing that should deflate the ego that's telling you to buy a Ferrari to prove your self-worth. It should make you go out of your way to appreciate what money can't buy.
It's a reminder that wisdom can come from anywhere. Like that story he tells about Kevin Costner and the author of Dances with Wolves, Michael Blake.
Costner basically saw Blake as this stray cat to be pitied. Blake was staying at his house, writing like a madman, but Costner was just too dismissive to even read his script.
Because Blake was struggling. He was homeless at one point, washing dishes to eat. He didn't look like a successful writer.
Right, and Costner's knee-jerk association between wealth and talent led him to ignore this guy. But that manuscript, the one Costner had dismissed, eventually became Dances with Wolves, a massive blockbuster that completely changed Costner's career and won a bunch of Oscars.
It's the ultimate cautionary tale against judging potential by current material status.
The luckier you are, the more effort you should put into humility and kindness, and understanding that smart, capable people can make decisions that result in very different non-materialistic lives. Wealth should be a tool for generosity, not a weapon for superiority.
So, reiterate the core lesson for us, the distilled wisdom from Housel on spending.
Money's highest purpose is independence and control over your time. If money is controlling your identity, if it's forcing your expectations to constantly rise, or dictating your self-worth through status games, then you are living a unique form of poverty no matter what your net worth says. It is a powerful tool to leverage who you are, but it must never ever be allowed to define who you are.
That's the distilled wisdom for today. Before we go, we want you to ask yourself a reflective question. What is the best purchase you've made for under $100 that actually improved your life? Not a status symbol, but a utility. Share your smart spend in the comments.
If you want more high-proof financial insights, subscribe to Wealth Distilled.
Catch you in the next deep dive.